Rain drummed steadily against the windshield as Daniel navigated the slick roads leading home from work. His hands tightened on the steering wheel, knuckles white from fatigue, but also from the weight of responsibility pressing down on him every day. At 35, he was doing his best to raise his 10-year-old daughter, Mia, alone. A task made infinitely harder since losing his wife 3 years earlier in a car accident that still haunted his dreams. Life hadn't been kind to them since then. The cozy suburban house they once shared as a family had been sold to cover medical bills, leaving them to settle into a modest 2-bedroom apartment on the outskirts of town. It wasn't much, but it was theirs, a patchwork of mismatched furniture, faded curtains, and walls adorned with Mia's colorful drawings. Despite the cramped quarters, Daniel tried to keep things cheerful for her sake, even if the grief lingered beneath the surface like an unhealed wound. His days followed a predictable rhythm. Up at dawn, drop Mia off at school, spend 8 grueling hours fixing cars at the garage, pick her up after work, and collapse onto the couch just long enough to muster energy for dinner. On weekends, they visited the park or baked cookies together. Small rituals meant to fill the void left by her mother's absence. But lately, Daniel noticed Mia retreating into herself. She spent more time drawing than talking, burying her nose in books instead of sharing stories about her day. He worried about her constantly, wondering if he was failing as a parent despite his best efforts. Tonight, though, none of those thoughts occupied his mind. The rainstorm had turned the streets into rivers of shimmering reflections, forcing him to focus entirely on driving. As he approached the dimly lit bus stop near the edge of town, movement caught his eye. 2 small figures huddled beneath the flickering street lamp, drenched and shivering. Slowing the car, Daniel squinted through the rain-soaked glass. A boy and a girl, no older than 8, clung to each other, their thin jackets offering little protection against the relentless downpour. Something in Daniel's chest twisted painfully. He couldn't drive past, not when they looked so utterly alone. Pulling over, he rolled down the window. "Hey kids, are you okay?" The boy glanced up, his wide eyes filled with fear and defiance. "We're fine," he muttered, though his trembling voice betrayed him. Daniel hesitated only a moment before opening the door. "Come on, you can't stay out here. Let me take you somewhere warm." Reluctantly, the siblings climbed into the car, dripping water onto the seats. The girl clutched a crumpled note in her hand, her lips quivering as tears mingled with raindrops on her cheeks. The boy stared straight ahead, refusing to meet Daniel's gaze. His jaw clenched tightly as if bracing for another blow. "What are your names?" Daniel asked gently, trying to break the tension. "I'm Liam," the boy said curtly. After a pause, he added, "This is Sophie, my sister." "Well, I'm Daniel. And don't worry, you're safe now." He glanced back at Sophie, who seemed too overwhelmed to speak. Reaching into the back seat, he grabbed a spare hoodie and handed it to her. "Here, try to get warm." As the heater hummed softly, filling the car with warmth, Daniel listened intently as the children began to open up. Their stepmother had dropped them off at the bus stop hours ago, claiming she couldn't handle them anymore. They didn't know where she'd gone, or if she planned to come back. Their father had died months earlier, leaving them in her care, but she'd never wanted them anyway. Tonight was simply the breaking point. Daniel's heart ached for them. He'd seen enough hardship in his own life to recognize the toll neglect could take on young souls. By the time they reached his apartment, he'd already decided. These kids weren't going anywhere. Not tonight, not until someone better equipped to help came along. Even then, he wasn't sure he could let them go. Mia greeted him at the door, her face lighting up briefly before faltering at the sight of their unexpected guests. "Who are they?" she asked, eyeing Liam and Sophie curiously. "They needed a place to stay," Daniel explained simply. Turning to the siblings, he added, "This is my daughter, Mia. She's pretty great, so don't let her boss you around too much." Mia crossed her arms, pretending to be annoyed, but her curiosity quickly got the better of her. Within minutes, she was showing Sophie her drawings, while Liam cautiously explored the living room. For the first time in weeks, laughter echoed through the apartment. a sound Daniel realized he'd missed more than he'd admitted. Little did he know, this act of kindness would ripple outward in ways neither he nor the children could have imagined. What started as a temporary shelter would soon become the foundation of something extraordinary, a miracle born from compassion, resilience, and the unbreakable bonds of family. The next morning brought a mix of chaos and quiet uncertainty as the small apartment buzzed with activity. Daniel woke early, brewing coffee while mentally calculating how to stretch his paycheck further now that there were 2 additional mouths to feed. Mia padded into the kitchen in her pajamas, rubbing sleep from her eyes, while Liam and Sophie sat huddled together on the couch, looking unsure of what to do or say. "Good morning," Daniel greeted them warmly, setting plates of toast on the table. "I figured we'd keep things simple for breakfast, just until we figure out everyone's favorites." Sophie glanced up hesitantly, her fingers twisting the edge of the blanket draped over her shoulders. "Thank you," she whispered, barely audible. "You're welcome," Daniel replied with a reassuring smile. "And don't worry, we'll get everything sorted out. For now, just relax. Okay?" Mia watched the siblings closely, her initial curiosity giving way to cautious friendliness. She slid onto the chair beside Sophie and held out one of her drawings. "Do you like art?" she asked, her voice soft but inviting. Sophie nodded shyly, accepting the picture. It was a colorful sketch of a tree surrounded by animals, a vibrant contrast to the muted tones of their current reality. "It's pretty," she said, managing a faint smile. "Thanks. I can teach you how to draw stuff if you want," Mia offered, her enthusiasm breaking through Sophie's reserve. The younger girl's eyes lit up slightly, and for the first time since arriving, she seemed genuinely interested in something. Liam, however, remained guarded. He picked at his toast silently, his gaze darting around the room as though searching for an escape route. Daniel noticed but didn't push him. Instead, he focused on creating a sense of normalcy, asking casual questions about school and hobbies to ease the tension. By mid-afternoon, the dynamic had shifted slightly. Mia convinced Sophie to join her in coloring, spreading crayons across the floor as they worked side by side. Liam lingered nearby, watching them with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. Eventually, Mia handed him a piece of paper and a blue crayon. "You should try it too," she said matter-of-factly. "Drawing helps when you're sad." For a moment, Liam hesitated, then reluctantly accepted the supplies. His lines were jagged and uncertain at first, but as Mia complimented his efforts, he began to relax. By the end of the day, all 3 children were sprawled on the carpet, giggling over silly doodles and half-formed creatures. Daniel observed this scene from the doorway, feeling a swell of hope and anxiety. While the kids seemed to be bonding, the practical challenges loomed large. Their tiny apartment already felt cramped, and finances were tighter than ever. Yet, seeing Mia laugh again reminded him why he'd taken the siblings in. It wasn't just about providing shelter. It was about restoring joy where it had been lost. Over the next few days, Daniel made a conscious effort to learn more about Liam and Sophie. Through gentle conversations and patient listening, fragments of their story emerged. They spoke of years spent tiptoeing around their stepmother, who alternated between ignoring them and lashing out in frustration. Meals were often skipped, birthdays forgotten, and bedtime stories non-existent. Their father, they recalled fondly, had been kind and loving before his sudden death. But after that, everything changed. Daniel listened intently, his heart breaking for the pain they'd endured. He shared bits of his own story too, telling them about losing his wife and how hard it had been for him and Mia to adjust. "We're not so different," he told them one evening as they sat together on the couch. "None of us chose this life, but we're here now, and we've got each other." His words seemed to resonate with Liam, who slowly began opening up. One afternoon, while helping Daniel tinker with a broken toy car, he admitted, "I thought no one cared anymore. That's why I stopped trying." "Well, I care," Daniel said firmly, meeting his gaze. "And so does Mia. You're part of this family now, whether you believe it yet or not." Sophie, meanwhile, found solace in Mia's company. The 2 girls bonded over art projects, make-believe games, and whispered secrets late at night. Mia introduced Sophie to her favorite books and taught her how to braid hair, patiently guiding her through each step. In return, Sophie shared snippets of her past, revealing a sharp wit and creative imagination beneath her timid exterior. As the days turned into weeks, the makeshift family settled into a rhythm. Mornings started with shared breakfasts, afternoons filled with schoolwork and playtime, and evenings ended with group activities, board games, movie nights, or simply talking about their days. Despite the tight quarters and occasional squabbles, there was an undeniable warmth growing among them. Not everything went smoothly, of course. Financial strain weighed heavily on Daniel, forcing him to pick up extra shifts at the garage. Some nights, he came home exhausted, wondering if he'd bitten off more than he could chew. Neighbors added to the pressure, whispering behind closed doors about his decision to take in strangers. "What if they're trouble?" one woman asked pointedly during a chance encounter at the grocery store. "You don't even know them." Daniel ignored the gossip, reminding himself that kindness shouldn't come with conditions. Still, the doubts lingered, especially when Liam acted out or Sophie withdrew into herself after a nightmare. Parenting for children, two of whom carried deep emotional scars, wasn't easy, and there were moments when Daniel questioned whether he was doing enough. But Mia stepped up in ways that surprised him. On rough days, she became a mediator, soothing tempers and offering hugs when tensions ran high. She also took pride in her role as a big sister, teaching Liam and Sophie how to tie their shoes, ride bikes, and navigate the playground politics of elementary school. Her newfound confidence reassured Daniel that taking in the siblings hadn't only helped them, it had also rekindled something vital within Mia herself. One evening, as Daniel tucked the kids into bed, Liam hesitated before saying, "You didn't have to help us, you know, but I'm glad you did." Daniel smiled, ruffling his hair. "Me too, buddy. Me too." In that moment, surrounded by the steady breathing of sleeping children and the faint hum of the nightlight, Daniel realized something profound. Sometimes, miracles aren't grand gestures or sweeping changes. They're quiet moments of connection, born from acts of courage and compassion. As the weeks turned into months, the apartment became more than just a place to live. It transformed into a sanctuary where wounds began to heal, one small step at a time. For Liam and Sophie, the scars of neglect ran deep, but Daniel's unwavering patience and Mia's boundless enthusiasm created an environment where they could start to feel safe again. Liam, who had initially kept everyone at arm's length, slowly let his guard down. At first, it was little things, accepting help with homework or joining in when Daniel fixed something around the house. Then came bigger moments, like the afternoon he proudly showed off a birdhouse he'd built with scraps from Daniel's toolbox. His chest puffed out as Daniel praised his craftsmanship, and for the first time, Liam allowed himself to believe he was capable of doing something right. Sophie, on the other hand, found her voice through creativity. Encouraged by Mia, she filled notebooks with drawings of fantastical worlds and colorful characters. One evening, she shyly handed Daniel a picture of their makeshift family, stick figures holding hands beneath a rainbow. "This is us," she explained softly, her cheeks flushing. Daniel knelt down to meet her eye level, his heart swelling. "It's perfect, Sophie. Thank you." He taped the drawing to the fridge, where it became a symbol of the life they were building together. But healing wasn't linear, and there were setbacks along the way. Some nights, Sophie woke up screaming from nightmares, clutching her blanket like a lifeline. On those occasions, Daniel would sit beside her bed, speaking gently until her breathing steadied. Other times, Liam lashed out in frustration, throwing toys or slamming doors when memories of his stepmother resurfaced. Instead of punishing him, Daniel approached these moments with understanding, reminding Liam that anger was okay, but so was talking about what hurt. Mia played a crucial role in this process, often bridging gaps neither Daniel nor the siblings knew how to cross. When Liam refused to apologize after snapping at Sophie during a game, Mia pulled him aside. "She didn't mean to upset you," she said firmly but kindly. "Just say sorry. It'll make both of you feel better." After a long pause, Liam muttered a reluctant apology, which Sophie accepted with a hesitant smile. These small victories accumulated over time, weaving threads of trust and love into the fabric of their lives. Daniel also encouraged the siblings to remember their father, not as a source of pain, but as someone who loved them deeply. One rainy Saturday, while sorting through old boxes in the garage, Liam stumbled upon a dusty photo album tucked away in a corner. Inside were faded pictures of their dad smiling at birthday parties, teaching them how to ride bikes, and hugging them close on Christmas mornings. Tears welled in Liam's eyes as he flipped through the pages, and Sophie clung to his side, sniffling quietly. Daniel joined them, sitting cross-legged on the floor. "He sounds like an amazing guy," he said softly. "You must miss him a lot." Liam nodded, clutching the album tightly. "We used to think he could fix anything. Even when stuff broke, he'd laugh and say, 'No problem, we'll build it stronger next time.'" "Well, maybe we can do that too," Daniel suggested. "Honor him by keeping his memory alive, and by helping each other the way he would have wanted." The idea resonated with the siblings. Over the following weeks, they began sharing stories about their dad at dinner, recounting funny anecdotes and cherished memories. Each tale brought laughter and tears, but most importantly, it reminded them that they weren't alone. They still had pieces of him with them, carried forward in their hearts. Meanwhile, Daniel faced his own challenges. The financial strain grew heavier with each passing month, forcing him to take on odd jobs in addition to his shifts at the garage. There were nights when he collapsed onto the couch, exhausted and overwhelmed, wondering if he'd made the right decision. But every time doubt crept in, he looked around at the 4 smiling faces surrounding him and remembered why he'd chosen this path. One particularly tough evening, after a long day of work and parenting, Daniel sat at the kitchen table staring blankly at a stack of bills. Mia noticed his exhaustion and quietly placed a mug of tea beside him. "You're doing great, Dad," she said earnestly. "Really?" Her words caught him off guard, but they anchored him. He realized that taking in Liam and Sophie hadn't just changed their lives. It had reshaped his and Mia's as well. They'd rediscovered joy and purpose in ways neither of them expected. As autumn gave way to winter, the family celebrated milestones big and small. Sophie conquered her fear of riding a bike without training wheels, thanks to Mia's patient coaching. Liam earned praise from his teacher for completing a science project, a miniature windmill inspired by his late father's tinkering skills. And Daniel, despite the stress, found moments of pure happiness watching the kids laugh and play together. On Christmas morning, surrounded by handmade gifts and decorations, Daniel reflected on how far they'd come since that stormy night at the bus stop. What had started as an act of kindness had blossomed into something extraordinary. A second chance at family, forged through resilience and love. As snow drifted lazily outside, filling the world with quiet magic, Daniel felt a profound sense of gratitude. Life hadn't been easy, and there were still challenges ahead. But for now, in this moment, everything was exactly as it should be. Together, they had created a miracle, one born not from grand gestures, but from the simple, steadfast belief that no one should face hardship alone. One chilly Saturday morning, as Daniel sorted through boxes in the corner of the garage, Liam wandered in carrying another dusty container labeled "Dad's Stuff." It was heavier than he expected, and when he set it down, the lid popped open slightly, spilling papers onto the floor. Curious, Daniel knelt to pick them up and froze. Among the scattered sheets were blueprints, sketches, and technical notes detailing an invention their father had been working on before his death. "What is all this?" Liam asked, peering over Daniel's shoulder. "I think," Daniel hesitated, scanning the documents more closely, "I think your dad was designing something pretty incredible." The blueprints depicted a compact device designed to purify water using solar energy, a concept far ahead of its time. Notes scrawled in the margins explained how it could provide clean drinking water in remote areas or during emergencies. The project appeared unfinished, but the potential was undeniable. Daniel's mind raced. He'd always admired inventors, though he considered himself more of a fixer than a creator. Still, the idea sparked something within him, a chance to honor Liam and Sophie's father while solving a problem that could benefit countless people. And maybe, just maybe, it could also provide financial stability for their growing family. Liam, Daniel said finally, turning to face the boy. Do you know what this is? Liam shook his head, his brow furrowed. No, Dad never talked about it much. Just said he was working on something big. Well, I think we should finish it, for him, Daniel suggested, his voice steady despite the excitement bubbling inside him. Together. For the first time in months, Liam's eyes lit up with genuine enthusiasm. You mean, we can actually do that? We'll try, Daniel replied with a grin. And if we fail, at least we gave it our best shot. Over the next several weeks, the garage became a makeshift workshop. Daniel enlisted everyone's help, assigning tasks based on each person's strengths. Mia, with her artistic flair, designed a logo and marketing materials for the eventual product. Sophie painted colorful illustrations to decorate the prototype, adding whimsical touches that made it feel personal. Liam, inspired by his father's ingenuity, took charge of assembling components under Daniel's guidance, proving surprisingly adept at understanding the mechanics. Evenings turned into brainstorming sessions around the kitchen table, where ideas flowed freely. Daniel taught the kids basic engineering principles, showing them how circuits worked and explaining the importance of precision. In return, they brought fresh perspectives, suggesting improvements or pointing out flaws Daniel might have overlooked. The process wasn't without challenges. There were days when parts wouldn't fit, wires snapped unexpectedly, or frustration boiled over into arguments. But every setback only strengthened their resolve. They reminded themselves why they were doing this, not just for financial gain, but to honor Liam and Sophie's father and prove that even broken pieces could be rebuilt into something extraordinary. As the prototype began to take shape, so did the family's sense of unity. Each success, no matter how small, felt monumental because it was achieved together. For Daniel, watching Liam and Sophie channel their grief into creativity reaffirmed his belief in the healing power of purpose. For Mia, seeing her dad step into the role of mentor and innovator filled her with pride she hadn't felt in years. And for Liam and Sophie, completing their father's dream gave them a way to keep him alive in their hearts. Finally, after months of trial and error, the device was ready. It wasn't perfect. There were rough edges and imperfections, but it worked. When Daniel poured dirty water into the chamber and activated the system, clear, drinkable water emerged moments later. The entire family erupted into cheers, hugging each other tightly as tears streamed down their faces. "This is amazing," Mia breathed, staring at the prototype in awe. "We actually did it." "It's not just us," Daniel corrected gently. "Your dad started this, Liam and Sophie. We're just finishing what he began." Sophie clutched Liam's hand, her voice trembling with emotion. "He'd be proud of us, wouldn't he?" "He already is," Daniel assured her, pulling both siblings into a tight embrace. "Trust me, he's looking down right now, cheering louder than any of us." With the prototype complete, Daniel reached out to old contacts from the garage, pitching the invention to local businesses and environmental organizations. To his surprise, the response was overwhelmingly positive. Within weeks, they secured funding to refine the design and produce the first batch of units. The business officially launched under the name Clear Sky Innovations, a nod to Sophie's suggestion that the device should represent hope and renewal. The impact was immediate. Orders poured in from disaster relief agencies, rural communities, and international nonprofits eager to distribute the product globally. Media coverage followed, highlighting the story behind the invention. A single dad and his blended family honoring a late inventor's legacy while addressing a critical global issue. Overnight, their lives changed in ways none of them had anticipated. Financial worries melted away as revenue poured in, allowing them to move into a larger home with space for everyone to thrive. Yet, despite their newfound success, the heart of their story remained unchanged. The miracle wasn't the money or recognition. It was the bond they'd forged through shared purpose and unwavering support. The months following the launch of Clearsky Innovations brought changes none of them could have imagined. What started as a modest garage project had transformed into a thriving business that not only provided clean water to underserved communities, but also secured a brighter future for Daniel, Mia, Liam, and Sophie. The The financial strain that once weighed heavily on Daniel lifted entirely, allowing him to focus on what mattered most: raising a family united by love and resilience. Their new home was a testament to their hard work and determination. Nestled on the edge of town, it was surrounded by trees and offered plenty of space for everyone to grow. Each child had their own bedroom, decorated with personal touches that reflected their personalities. Mia's walls were covered in art supplies and shelves lined with books. Liam's room showcased his growing collection of tools and gadgets, and Sophie's sparkled with colorful drawings and crafts. A large backyard became their playground, where laughter echoed as they played tag, built forts, or helped Daniel tend to a small vegetable garden. But the house wasn't just bigger, it felt different. Warmth radiated from every corner, a reflection of the bonds they'd nurtured over the past year. Family dinners became sacred rituals, filled with lively conversations about school, inventions, and dreams for the future. Weekends were reserved for adventures, hiking trips, visits to museums, or lazy afternoons baking cookies together. For the first time in years, Daniel felt like they weren't just surviving, they were truly living. One evening, as they sat around the fireplace celebrating a milestone, the millionth unit sold, Daniel took a moment to reflect aloud. "Do you remember that night at the bus stop?" he asked, glancing at Liam and Sophie. "When I found you two huddled under that flickering light?" Liam nodded, his expression thoughtful. "Yeah, we thought no one cared anymore." "Well," Daniel continued, leaning forward, "I didn't know then what letting you into our lives would mean, but now, I see it clearly. You didn't just need us, we needed you too. Together, we've created something extraordinary." Sophie smiled, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "We're lucky to have you, Daniel. And Mia, you gave us a family when we didn't think we'd ever have one again. And you reminded us how to laugh," Mia added, reaching over to squeeze Sophie's hand. "How to hope." Daniel felt a lump rise in his throat as he looked at each of them. His daughter, who had grown into a confident young leader. The siblings, who had blossomed into resilient, compassionate individuals. And himself, rediscovering purpose and joy in ways he never expected. They weren't perfect, and there would still be challenges ahead. But they faced those challenges together, fortified by trust and love. As spring arrived, bringing fresh blooms and longer days, the family gathered in the backyard to plant a tree, a symbol of their roots and growth. Daniel handed out shovels, and they worked side by side, digging deep into the earth until the sapling stood tall and steady. Sophie tied a ribbon around its trunk, inscribed with a message she'd written earlier. "For Dad, and all the miracles we've built together." Over the years, that tree would grow alongside them, bearing witness to graduations, birthdays, and countless memories shared beneath its branches. It served as a reminder that even in the darkest storms, strength could be found in unity, and miracles often began with simple acts of kindness. On quiet nights, Daniel would sit on the porch, watching the stars twinkle above while listening to the distant hum of crickets. He thought about how far they'd come, from loss and loneliness to love and abundance. Taking in Liam and Sophie hadn't just changed their lives. It had redefined what family meant. Bloodlines didn't matter. It was the connections forged through compassion, sacrifice, and shared experiences that truly bound them. Mia joined him one evening, handing him a cup of tea. "You okay, Dad?" she asked, settling beside him. "Better than okay," he replied, smiling as he wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "We did good, kiddo. All of us." She leaned into him, nodding. "Yeah, we did. And we're not done yet." "No," Daniel agreed, his voice soft but certain. "Not by a long shot." Inside, Liam and Sophie were sprawled on the living room floor, building a model airplane kit they'd bought during a recent trip to the hobby store. Their laughter drifted through the open window, mingling with the scent of blooming flowers. Life wasn't perfect, but it didn't have to be. It was full, vibrant, and brimming with possibilities. As Daniel gazed at the stars, he realized something profound. Sometimes, the greatest miracles weren't the ones you planned. They were the ones that found you when you least expected them. By opening his heart and home to two frightened children on a rainy night, He had sparked a chain reaction of healing, growth, and transformation. And in doing so, he had created a legacy that would endure for generations to come. The miracle wasn't just the invention or the success. It was the family they had become, a patchwork of broken pieces stitched together by love, proving that even in the face of adversity, life could bloom in unexpected and beautiful ways.